My favorite corner to hang out on is the intersection of culture and activism. It's a place filled with great vibes. It's bursting with optimism. And frankly, the locals are top tier. The trouble is, Apple Maps simply will not take you there. It's a classic case of the girls who know. So how do you get in the know? That's what we're going to be talking about today. Welcome back to Participation Trophy, the do-gooder's guide to changing the world, an unscientific podcast where we set out to discover if participation trophies drove a generation of greats. I'm your host, Topher Williams. Our guest today on the podcast is truly living at my favorite intersection. She's a fashion icon who's bringing serious activism and live music to a city near you. During the 2024 election, her organization registered almost 500,000 voters all across the United States at music festivals and events from Bonnaroo to Madison Square Garden to your local neighborhood venue. Please give a grand participation trophy welcome to Lucille Wenegieme. Hi, Lucille.
Hi, Topher.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Lucille, I would love for you to take a couple minutes to just tell us about yourself and what you're doing to change the world.
Yeah, so I am a millennial pretty solidly, and I lead a national voting nonprofit. We are nonpartisan, and we're really focused on registration, information, and activation. So we make sure that particularly young people, but sort of music fans that are young and young at heart, have everything that they need to get involved in their communities. So obviously that looks like voting for us, but that also looks like being civically engaged and volunteering and supporting other organizations like out in the world doing good work.
Okay, well, that seems to me like that is quite literally the definition of changing the world and getting involved. So seems very on brand for our podcast today.
Yeah, bullseye.
So you are Nigerian-American. Can you tell us how has being a Black woman who's part of both cultures shaped your activism and your work?
Yeah, I think before I ever considered, having jobs in politics or in the civic space, I always really came from the foundation of sort of like Nigerian mutual aid. I didn't have those words for it when I was growing up, but my parents came here as immigrants, especially when I was young, living in Nigerian-American communities, recent immigrant communities. And a lot of that lifestyle is talking to people who has what, who knows the best place to go, who knows where, you can find this local Nigerian ingredient in the middle of Texas, which is where I was born. I grew up in Colorado, and we were some of the first Nigerian immigrants in Colorado. And so really building that community and helping people, whether that is supporting somebody to get through, college back in Nigeria or, finding food that you need at home. And so that was always kind of the core of like, you have a community and you make sure that everybody has what they need, in places where you have abundance, which might be, resources or time flexibility. Somebody else might have, more abundance in terms of, their ability to connect you to something or the hard work that they can provide. And so really coming from that arena of like, everybody's helping everybody, even when you want to like bite the next person's head off. Yeah, I think definitely growing up in a Nigerian-American community, whether I knew it then, was the seed, right, for like a bunch of sort of like civic and community and like organizing work that has come in my life since then.
I love the way that you put that about having this Nigerian community in Texas that was like, here's where you can get this ingredient, or here's where you can get access to this thing. I mean, that is organizing 101, right? That's organizing before you were even thinking about being an organizer. That's pretty cool.
Absolutely.
All right, Lucille, in our movement, right, in the civic space, we talk a lot about the importance of registering voters. And I feel like often it can feel a little bit cliche, right? Just vote, just register to vote. But can you tell us in your own words why that is so important?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's two different parts of this, right? It's like, why is voting important? And also, why does a lot of the way that we talk about voting, particularly like to and with and around young people, like why is it stale and why does it not work? In general, registration is the portal, right? In this country, we have a history of making people have to opt into voting versus, and it just making it, a base for everybody. And so that's really the first, sort of broad entry point of like, okay, we have to get people across this first threshold before we can even have these more robust conversations about why people should vote, what people are going to vote for, what's important to them, local issues versus national issues, all of those global issues, right? Like this is always the first threshold. And it's easy to overlook because there's more nuance and perhaps even sometimes more interest, when you're getting down to like policy issues and things like that. But registration really is that hurdle. And especially for young people, it's quite literally the biggest hurdle. But, I think particularly like young people and, let's talk about specifically Gen Z, but like Gen Alpha will be voting for the first time in 2028. Like, we're really talking about a generation of young people who are just like, they see through the bullshit. Like, they are exposed to tons of information, tons of different kinds of information, tons of different sources. They are, I hate the term digitally native, but I don't think we've come up with anything better than that. They're thinking they've been in this culture where like Congress doesn't work. Why would I think that Congress is going to work? Like, sure, I can think about the olden days that like, my parents and my aunts and uncles and my grandparents talk about like, when senators used to mean something, right? But that's not their lived experience. And, even for those folks who are like just old enough to like, start to explore that. And so the whole like just vote thing is just, it's not really salient. It has to be connected. And specifically for us at HeadCount, it is connected to your community. It's not just about you, right? And we know that young people have a real strong capacity for supporting, the folks in their community, whether that is, Venmo campaigns or GoFundMes or a whole variety of things, right? Like the idea that young people can like put their time or their energy or their money, whatever is available to them, and directly help somebody is absolutely a form of change that we know that young people are bought into. They just don't see those things they see those things as being more useful than voting. And so we just have to continue to give them a reason to do that. Like, voting is useful for the thing that you want. Voting is useful for the way that you want to change your community. Voting is useful for the thing that you want to see. And it's one of the things on your plate. I think too, when we're talking about like, just vote. It's like, no. This is one of a menu of things. You're going to want to, help out with your friends and family. Maybe you do want to run for office. Maybe you just want to volunteer once a quarter. Maybe you want to give money. But this is one of a whole variety of things. Like, this is a menu of options for how you can like be a good person that's engaged in your community. But like, this is an essential part of this. This is the protein, essentially, of this meal when you're being civically engaged. There's lots of other things that are useful, but you have to make sure that this is part of your repertoire. And so, thinking through ways to connect that to community, to viability, to effective change is absolutely part of what we have to do at HeadCount when we're, engaging other young people.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I like the way that you're thinking about it as, a menu of options, not just because I feel like often, especially, as a young but aging person, right? I feel like often the message I receive is all you need to do is vote and the adults will take it from here, right? And I think it's really clear that has not worked, right? And so young people, they see through that, right? Like, they know that doesn't work, right? I also want to ask a follow-up here. You mentioned how voting in the United States is very opt-in, right? What are some ways that we could move from opt-in to, I don't know if opt-out is the right word, or some other form that is better supportive of the realities of registering to vote in 2025?
Yeah, for sure. For me, it's about, if we built this today with the intention that eligible voters had like secure, reliable, convenient ways to vote, we would not be building the system that we have today. Like, I think that is evident to everybody, regardless of where you sit on the political spectrum. Like, this is not the ideal that we are working in today, right? So if we're building it from scratch, what does that look like, right? Like, there's some things that are happening right now that are really interesting. You can talk about the ranked choice voting space. You can talk about vote by mail, especially, like, huge for young people, that level of access. And, especially when you move from, you can get a ballot in the mail, you have to request it, to, actually, we're going to proactively mail you a ballot so that this is coming to you. You have time with it. You have a bunch of options of how to return it so that you can make this work in your life. Those are the kinds of things that, like, if the point was to get people to vote, those are the kinds of things that you would do. And so, I think sometimes because of that, like, duty rhetoric that we have around voting, it's like, yeah, you have to want it. You have to work hard for it. it has to be difficult. You have to spend the whole day, you know, in the ballot box and in the booth, and like, you know, you have to take time off work to do it, and it has to be between the hours of 9 to 5 on this specific day when the moon is high and, you know, the tide is low and all these things, right? But that's not how you would build that if the point was to make sure that like people had their voice heard. And so they're definitely, for me, I'm a vote by mail stan. I've done that work as well. The data is there, right? It's not just like because it's an interesting thing or because I grew up in Colorado. Like there's a ton of data around how that closes the gap, particularly for young people because they move a ton. On average, a young person is going to move once every 18 months. And so every time you're moving, that's a different address, potentially a different state. And so making it to where like, okay, if the point is that we want these people to be included, there are things that we would do toward that as a country. And so for us, we don't advocate specifically on different methods. We actually just got a bunch of our data back, and the people who activate with us actually take advantage of all different options to vote, whether that's voting by mail, early voting, voting on election day. So like ideally young people, they love options. We've seen that just in our data. And that's really the key, right, is giving people options versus saying like, oh, actually, if you really wanted to do this thing, you would go through all of these loopholes to prove it to us. So yeah, that's my philosophy. I think anybody that cares about, you know, young people or anybody having their voices heard is really invested in, you know, alternative ways to make sure that the ballot is closer to the people.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think I've used all the ways to vote that you've listed off personally, right? So, I mean, being able to have flexibility and options is, in a consumer product, that seems obvious. It's weird that we don't apply that to civics too. Sort of building on this, though, I'm curious, can you tell us what is our movement getting wrong about young people in America today?
Yeah, I think there are a couple of things that we're getting wrong about young people right now. The first is this old way of thinking about digital being a different place or a different space, right? Like we're doing this here and then we're doing this on digital. And that is just not how young people experience the world today, especially if you are the youngest of Gen Z or Gen Alpha who are going to be voting in their first presidential election in 2028. Like those spaces are absolutely intertwined and they are layered on top of each other, and you're experiencing all of them all of the time. You are talking through your friends simultaneously just as much through Snap as you are through texts. You are interacting with your parents on text messages. You are consuming content on TikTok. It's how you are developing your language and your popular culture, your personal culture, your regional culture, like all of these things. Like this is all one place, right? Like if you're a young person, these things are all together. And so treating, especially if you're somebody who's thinking about like how to build programs to talk to young people, to engage young people, to empower young people, you can't think of these two like places as being separate. And so particularly at HeadCount, one of the things that I've been saying a lot, you know, internally is like, this is a hybrid moment. Like we should be thinking about how everything plays in all of these places, right? Like if you are somebody who is like thinking about going to Coachella next year, you are weighing a whole bunch of things. You're weighing, do I want to be there in person? Do I want to watch it on a live stream? Do I want to watch certain things on live stream because it's too hot in the desert and, you know, during the day, but I want to see these specific things at night because that physical experience is more important to me? Do I want to watch through the full experience, or do I want to video specific experiences so that I can relive that experience later? Like, and that's how, particularly if we're thinking about media, you know, this idea that like, okay, well, there's print and there's, you know, digital, and like there are ways that that is just not the wave right now. And so, you know, if you're thinking about, you know, what young people are saying to each other, what they're saying about the quote unquote adults in the room, if you're thinking about digital as like a siloed place separately, I think you've definitely gotten it wrong. And the other thing that I think is really important too is like, I was hearing a lot, like the word apathy was getting thrown out a ton last year. Oh, the young people are apathetic. Young people don't care. Young people are just like so consumed, you know, with TikTok that they're like, you know, not lifting their heads up to like know what's going on around them. Because again, people are thinking about digital as like being this separate space and not like an actual ecosystem. Like it's the difference between talking about like quote unquote the economy and like whether or not I can actually, you know, get an apartment, or like whether or not I can afford my Temu haul. Like, is the haul going to haul as much as it used to? You know, like those are the ways that young people are talking about these things, because that's how it's translating. And those things are translating across all of the different spheres, right? So like young people are not apathetic. Like it's, especially, this idea that like humor is not a real response to the ways in which young people are experiencing the world. Like it boggles my mind. Like if this is all you ever knew and you did not feel like you had a ton of really great tools to functionally make things better because the adults in the room do not care, then like, yeah, we're going to laugh about it. Like, yes, light it on fire. Like, and if you're coming at it through that lens, it actually, you can see a lot of care. You can see a lot of concern. You can see a lot of interest in young people. And then there's a lot that you can support them in doing with that. It's a lot of like, okay, yeah, like this is what you're feeling. That is real. And also here are the different things that you can do, again, with your menu to make this better, not just for you, but for the people you care about, for your siblings, for your family, for your friends. And then you're just having a better conversation. So yeah, apathy as like an idea, that's absolutely wrong. If you are using that word to describe young people, I immediately know that the only young people you know are your kids and you're just like not paying attention. And also that like, yeah, digital is not just like this far off space that you need to like, make content for in a vacuum. Like it is layered onto everything in life. It is a substantive part of young people's lives. It is the equivalent of life. Your digital life and your offline life are the same. It's just your life. So I think those are the two big things.
Ooh, yeah, some deep wisdom from Lucille. Thank you so much. Can you tell us a little bit about, what is HeadCount and how can people get involved?
Yeah, HeadCount is a really lovely nonprofit organization. I like to say that we are a music organization that does good in the civic space. We're 21 years old now. We are legal out in the streets.
All right. Tequila shots with HeadCount. Let's go.
Yes. So go up HeadCount. And yeah, we recruit like folks in our community. That's music fans, that's young people, and we get folks registered to vote. We work with some of the biggest talent in the music industry. We work across genre. So that's everybody from Dead & Company to Sabrina Carpenter, Green Day. We actually worked with over 100 artists last year. And we do voter registration at their tour stops. We also do voter registration at music festivals all across the country. And we also work at community events as well. So like last year, we were at over 100 Pride events. And yeah, we just try to make it easy and fun to check your voter registration status, get registered, update your registration. And then we follow up with information that's tailored to you based off of where you live, so that you can get across that finish line, make sure that you're voting, make sure that you're turning out. And we make it fun, right? Like not like fun on paper, but like actually fun because you're like hanging out. And when you look on the news and you see like crazy shit happening in, government and governance, like you have something to counterweight that. You have, but there were actually these like really great people who like love the same music as I do, who are really invested in making sure that like I can have my voice heard too. And I think that counterbalance is really important, particularly for young people, because they're just starting the civic journey and thinking through like, what is important to me? Who do I want to be spending my time with? Like, where am I finding, we would call it like a political home, but like really the people who have the same values as me or people who push me to think about things differently and who I trust. And, having some positive associations there is really important. And that's one of the things that I love about HeadCount. I feel like it's our secret sauce in a lot of ways. And, we're entertainment people, we're music people. And so, we bring that kind of, lightness and I think rigor to the work, and we don't overly poll test things. We just like go with vibes a lot too. And it works.
I love that. We don't overly poll test things. We just go with vibes. More people, I think, in our space need to remember that and do that. That's one thing. I know you guys have had people take a ton of action with you. I mean, can you just like run us through the numbers? What does that look like?
Yeah, I think that's one of the really fun things about HeadCount is like we actually play really big. Like we have a really big scale. So in 2024, in that cycle, we registered almost 500,000 new voters, and we had over 3.3 million people take action with us. And for us, taking action is checking your voter registration status, getting registered, or signing up to get election information from us. So like people who are signing up for meaningful things. And that looks like 1 in every 100 Americans taking action with HeadCount, which is really amazing. And, we are a team of about 25, full-time folks, and we have over 90,000 volunteers. There's about 100 folks who are our team leaders who sort of activate in their local areas. And it's just like really great national network of people who are in like the music and culture, but also like civic engagement space. It's just really beautiful and amazing. And I like to say that we punch above our weight in that way. And we just got our turnout numbers too, because it's not just about getting registered. It's also about voting. And we know that about 78% of the folks that we talked to in that cycle ended up voting. We like just got those numbers, which if you've looked at the turnout data lately is, depending on the age group, between 25 and 30% higher than folks who are 18 to 29 across the country. So, the things that we're doing are meaningful. We know that people who interact with HeadCount, who are engaged with our community, are that much more likely to vote. And that's huge, right? Having 30% more young people being in the conversation, having their themselves represented is absolutely huge, like cannot be, I think, overstated. So I'm extremely proud, as you can tell.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you should be. I hope that nobody listening to this or watching this on YouTube or whatever missed what you said, that you had 1 out of every 100 Americans take action with you. I mean, that's bananas. And then what was it? 78% of the people that you interacted with then actually voted. I mean, anyone who works in the voter engagement, the civic space, right, elections, campaigns, turnout should be listening to what you're saying and thinking, how can we apply some of that HeadCount secret sauce to what we're doing? Because it is working, right? I mean, this is an area that is working and actually engaging young people and moving them up. And I mean, and you've sort of mentioned a handful of really interesting people and companies and partnerships. What are some of these other partnerships that you're working with right now?
Yeah, so in the music space, for us, it's always about artists, right? So they're always going to be our key partners. And so this year we're on tour with Wilco. I mentioned Halsey. We're on tour with Katy Perry, and continuing to bring on artists who are willing to give their platforms and their physical real estate on their tours to us to make sure that their fans are registered. And then we also have some really strong partners in the corporate and brand space. Spotify has been a partner with us for many years now. And, for National Voter Registration Day, we'll often, push to users to make sure that they're registered, check their status and all of those pieces to make sure that, Spotify listeners are ready to go ahead of the election. Paramount is another key partner of ours for many years. And so, making sure that, again, like media, this is a very fluid ecosystem, right? It's the albums that you're listening to, whether or not you're streaming them, or if you're a vinyl person, it's whether or not you're going to a tour or a festival. Sometimes it's, what you're watching online, whether that's, on TV or streaming or whatever that looks like, right? And really making sure that we have these key partners in places to, really make authentic experiences. And if there's anything that I can give from what we do and what we do really well, because I think there's a version of this where people think oh yeah, you have a famous person and they posted a thing or they had you on tour and so you got big numbers. And, I think it would surprise people that it's so much less about that. We have folks who are, either earlier in their careers or, are sort of playing mid-sized rooms that are able to register, support us and that we're registering, really solid numbers. And it's so much more about the authenticity. And, and thinking about where young people are at right now, authenticity is huge. The bullshit meter is just so well trained, right? There's so much content that young people are consuming and being able to, build that kind of of course, media literacy, still very necessary. But I think the bullshit meter for young people is huge. And so the idea that no, it's not just that you had somebody with a huge fan base saying, oh, here, get registered to vote. It really is about creating that authentic, sustained experience. For us with Sabrina Carpenter last year, we were on her whole US tour. We did a bunch of custom activations with her. We did stuff in person as well as digital. And so if you're a fan of hers, that this is something that she genuinely cares about.
Yeah, that's so important. I really think that the piece about authenticity is critical. I mean, really, that is what's missing in so much of politics and campaigns and civic engagement today, I think, right? I mean, there's this sort of just push it. And when we miss the authenticity piece, right, when we're not being authentic about it and we're not following through and we're not showing up where people are at, that's when we miss people, right? I mean, I think I sit in a lot of these workshops and panels and what happened in 2024 sessions. And the bottom line is that the lack of authenticity is is a huge part of the problem, right? Like we're not being authentic, right? So I really appreciate you bringing that up. I want to shift gears a little bit here, get a little more personal with you. You are famously a very fashionable leader, and I want to know, and the listeners want to know, what makes a good outfit?
Ooh, that's a really great question. For me, I think it actually starts with like knowing your body, which I think is actually probably some of the most challenging pieces of this, like in fashion in general, right? Is, you know, I think it's really easy to fixate on like the clothes or the accessories or the colors, but it's actually more about like you and your body. You know, what are the things that you really enjoy? What are the shapes that you really like? Maybe what's your natural shape, but what's the shape you're trying to create, right? What is your skin tone? Like, what do you like on that? And, you know, I think that anybody who spends a little bit of time thinking about that is already like half of the way there. And then to me, I feel like find your core outfit, which like I think some people would be surprised to know. Like for me, my core outfit is actually a crisp white button down, a pair of like black 3/4 ankle pants and a black loafer. Like that's my like core outfit. Like if I could wear nothing else and I still needed to do my life, that would be my core outfit because I love, you know, the shape, the look, the different contexts I can wear it in. And like really, I think really focus on that. Like what is, if you had to wear something forever, like what would that look like? And then I think that can sort of be like your passport into a bunch of other things, right? And then you can think, oh, okay, well, maybe a different spin on this is, you know, a different texture or different fabric or a different color. And then it gives you an anchor to sort of move through all of the like more interesting elements that like, if you're worried, can be a little overwhelming. You know, like a white button down can turn into a powder blue button down. You know, a black ankle pant can actually turn into a black wide leg pant. And then you sort of have a home base that you're starting from. And I think that can maybe help people feel excited. But like, I don't know, I'm a more is more girly. I'm very much like a crack out the bag, put on a pair of glasses. Okay, wait, actually we're doing earrings. Like I'm very much like a start with your base and then more is more, but that's not for everybody, you know? Start with your core, start with your base, and then you can riff from there.
Okay, great advice for the children on how to build a good outfit. I'm also a little guilty of being more is more. My husband will get home from work or something, and I've tried on 15 different outfits and they're all strewn across the bed. And he's like, yes. What are you doing? So now I've got a clothing rack that I just like wheel around the house with different, it's never put away. It just has clothing on it. And I really appreciate the lesson on building a good outfit though. Always trying to soak that up.
Yes. I very much co-sign the clothing rack version of the world. Yes. Tens across the board. It also makes you feel like you're living in a nice boutique store, which can be fun.
Honestly, one day, this room that I'm in right now will just be a closet. But for now, it is my office and recording studio. But one day, we're going to get on here, participation trophy listeners, and it's going to be a wall of clothes behind me. I'm very excited for that day.
Yes. And then it'll slowly just become Vogue interviews. It'll be great.
Yes, that's the vibe. Okay, we're going to switch now to some rapid fire questions about your music preferences. Are you ready to play Lucille?
Yes.
Okay, ready? First question, hip hop or R&B?
Hip hop.
Beyonce or Rihanna?
Music or products? For products, definitely Rihanna. Dare I say also for music Rihanna? But I'm sorry. Bayhive, I love you. Close second. But like I did Renaissance, I'm not doing Cowboy Carter.
Oh, all right. Well, I'm doing Cowboy Carter, and I will just have to tell you how good it is when we get there. Vinyl or streaming?
Vinyl's really beautiful, but I'm a streaming girly. I cannot lie.
I love that.
Cue it up, shuffle.
Okay. Oh, okay. Well, we're getting there. So playlists or full albums?
I will always listen to the full album first, but playlist everywhere from then after. I never listen to an album full way through after the first time.
Oh, that's interesting. Never listen to an album the full way through after the first time. I love a full album. I also am a sucker for trying to create a playlist for a specific vibe or moment.
Yes.
Right?
A specific season. I'm very into like seasonal playlists.
Okay.
So like, yeah, unless you've got like a high concept album to where I have to listen to this like wall to wall to get the message. I'm listening to it one time. Yes, you assembled it for me this way. And then I'm going to pick what I want.
Okay, well, maybe in the future we'll have the Lucille and Topher playlist season. I don't know. TBD. We'll come back with more. All right, next question. Stadium show or small venue?
Small venue. I don't like having to like run around a whole big stadium to find my seat.
That's tough. Okay, festival weekend or one night only?
Ooh, that's rough. That's rough. I sort of feel like one night only. Although I do really love being able to see a bunch of people at once. I like being taken on a journey, and one night only, I'm like, yes.
Finally, we have arrived, Lucille, at the most important question of the podcast. Did you receive a participation trophy, and what was it for?
Yes, I definitely got a participation trophy. It was in soccer when I was growing up. I was on a soccer team. Fun fact, our soccer coach was also the husband of our Girl Scout troop leader. Love it. Love that for us. But yeah, I played left back, and I was not good. And yeah, we all got a nice, like, thank you for playing. And I loved that. I was like, yes, thank you. Thank you for making me feel great. This is exactly what I needed to like come back next season and not just like do something else with my time.
Outstanding. Okay, Lucille, where can people find you to connect online, follow along, hear what HeadCount's up to? Where should people follow to join more?
Yes, for sure. If you are wanting to see more of me, LinkedIn is the place to find me these days. We're trying to be legit. If you want to learn more about HeadCount, which quite frankly is going to be much more interesting, we are on all of the social platforms. We are on LinkedIn, we are on Instagram, we are still on X, but we are also on Blue Sky. And yeah, we're on TikTok. We're on TikTok as well. And also like come volunteer with us. That's honestly the best. Like headcount.org. Like check out all the different like tours that we're on with right now. We'll only add more as the year goes on, and like come out, see some friends, make some new friends at the table, get some folks registered. You also get free tickets. You get to see the show for free almost always if you volunteer with us, which is a nice perk. So, you get to register some fans and then see the show, the headliner. Make some friends.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much, Lucille, for joining us on Participation Trophy and for existing at the intersection of culture and activism. It was so good to have you here. Such a treat. And we can't wait to see you at the next music festival with all the HeadCount volunteers registering people to vote.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us for another episode of Participation Trophy. I'm your host, Topher Williams. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel, Participation Trophy Podcast, and follow me on Instagram at @TophMcGof so you don't miss one single thing. Until next time, remember, it's up to us to make the world that we want to see. Bye.